Welcome back, everybody, to the Beyond the Buckets. I am happy to have my man all the way from the bottom, Miami, Florida, Bobby Hallback. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate the time and opportunity that you're providing for me. Appreciate it.
Definitely. I didn't tell you this on the little pre-talk, but my background is psychology. I have two psychology degrees, one associate's in psychology, and then another bachelor's in psychology. And truth be told, I wanted to do what you do. I wanted to be a sports psychologist back when I was in college. You know, God had different plans for me, but yeah. So I'm really excited to dive into how you got to where you're at right now. You're a mental health therapist as well as a sports psychologist consultant. So yeah, I'm ready to have this great conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate it. My journey started when I was by the age of 6. Got involved with basketball and just kind of started from there. And then I started learning as I continued to grow, like the factor, the social factor that's interfered with the individual, that student athletes, and then just been exposed to like drugs and alcohol. And then that's where I really started getting in the field of mental health. Lost my oldest brother through crack cocaine, and I was just curious about how can an individual get addicted to such a potent drug, and that's where it just kind of built up from high school and carried on to my collegiate days of just playing sports and also just working in the field as a mental health therapist. I understood like there is concerns and issues that come to dealing with stressors or trying to push away problems and issues to use that by saying using drugs, and that's what kind of took my brother away, about 10 years, about 15 years ago. So I just been in this field for like about 10 to 12 years, just focusing on it more and more. But that's how I got involved with mental health, substance abuse. And now that I'm involved with this profession deeply, like this is what I'm passionate about, just trying to help individuals develop coping skills to help them deal with stressors that may come about. And with
Right.
the sports component, as a sports therapist, I was able to reflect and utilize what I learned as when I was competing and the stressors that came with that, and I discovered that you have three levels of psychological stressors that comes with playing sports. You have the competition stressors, you have the personal stressors, and you have the organizational stressors in terms of the environment, your psychosocial environment. And then also with the academics, trying to maintain sports along with maintaining grades was a lot of stress, and just trying to keep a balance, and trying to find balance and just trying to help educate players and parents and coaches that, there are times where we're going to face stressors and then we need professional guidance and help to go through those different levels of stressors.
Wow, a lot of stuff that we're going to dive into, especially on the sports side. But I first want to say, I'm sorry to hear about your brother. I think a lot of people can really identify with that. I know there's been people in my family, even to this day, that have, battled with drugs and alcohol and addiction, and that leads to a lot of different mental illnesses and things like that. Um, we just had this talk in our family a few days ago. Know this or not, but Oregon has now legalized all illicit drugs. So whether that be not just marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamines, you name it, any illicit drug currently in Oregon is now legal. It is not legal to sell it, but it is legal to consume it. And I just, I was having this conversation because I don't know the right answers. There's a lot more smarter, intelligent people than me to discuss this, but I was trying to figure out from their perspective, do they think it is a good thing to allow anybody that for the opportunity to do it? Because I'm a strong-minded person. So my feeling is if somebody wants to do cocaine, whether it's legal or it's illegal, they're going to find a way to do it. Now they were saying, and just because it's legal doesn't mean that I'm going to do it, or maybe you might not do it. But there may be some
Right.
people because of the legality and the ability to access it without the repercussions of getting in trouble. Will that, increase the amount of consumption, or will it decrease it? Because now, since it's not illegal, I'm not worried about doing it or not doing it, or I just kind of go about my business. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Wow, the first thought that came to mind is another pandemic, epidemic in terms of that. With now you're promoting, even though it's legalized, in my belief, now you're promoting more crime, criminal activities, overdosing, murdering in terms of like trying to kill someone to get drugs. So I feel like, to me, I think that's the wrong thing to do in my terminology. So I don't feel like that's a great move. But I know, based on the reason and the purpose of why Oregon legalized those illicit drugs, they have to have a greater purpose than you and I do. But I just feel like that's just promoting more criminal behavior, criminal thinking, a lot of substance abuse, overdosing, in terms of that from all ages, because now kids start smoking and drinking by the age of 10. So you only can imagine if they get access to those illicit drugs, what it's going to turn out to be.
Right. It's just amazing to me what they determine to be legal and illegal. If you talk about the prohibition days, alcohol was illegal, and people would still be finding a way to do it. So I guess the other side of the argument would be people are still going to do it anyway or find a way to do it. Well, why don't we just legalize it, and we put infrastructure in place to help these individuals in case they do get addicted? Because like you just said, kids are drinking earlier and earlier. It went on when I was in high school. It still goes, and I teach high school students right now, and a lot of
Right.
them are diving into these things, whether it be alcohol, drugs, cocaine, vape, marijuana, you name it. They are doing it now. It might not be huge percentages, but it is going on. We'd be naive to think that it isn't. I guess the argument for me would be, would those people do it anyway? And allowing it to be done, similar to what the marijuana laws now are in California. If you're, above the age of 18, you can now go and purchase marijuana. Just like if you're 21, you can purchase alcohol,
Right.
or 18 buy cigarettes. So I don't know. It's an interesting conundrum.
Yeah, I would say by far. This is the first time I heard about it, but I'm not too surprised that at some point this was going to happen in the process of just legalizing marijuana. So the other drugs eventually is going to work their way up through the pipeline too. But just for Oregon to go ahead and put that to the forefront, it's going to be like a widespread at some point.
You think so? Yeah.
and I
What
and I just feel like that's going to create just more chaos, throughout the world in terms of like just giving the opportunity to know that you can go to a certain state and get these illicit drugs, and now you're going to have people probably migrate just to get to those substances.
Right. It's really interesting because there's a lot of legal drugs, like we just mentioned alcohol, we just mentioned marijuana. I don't know if it's legal in Florida. I don't think it is. But
No,
caffeine,
not yet.
caffeine, nicotine, all these things are legal. And then there's some over-the-counter drugs that you have to get prescribed by a doctor, like Adderall that is prescribed by a doctor, and that has amphetamines. Is a
Right.
small dose of amphetamine, so they are giving people these sort of drugs. Oxycodone or oxycontin is the same, or well, the similar ingredients to what is included in heroin. So
Hmm.
it's just interesting that some of these things are legal and some of them are not, and some of them we can give to people because if you or I wanted to do some real damage, we can go drink a whole fifth of whatever, and we can harm ourselves, we can harm other people, we can
Hmm.
get into a lot of different things, and that is legal for us to go down to this corner store, buy a bottle of liquor, and consume it. Whereas some of these other things are not. I mean, like I said, I think it's something for somebody much smarter than the knowledge that I have, but it's just an interesting topic to me.
Yeah, definitely. So, like you said, a lot of prescription over-the-counter drugs have some kind of form of nicotine or a dab a bit of like certain drugs, chemicals to try to regulate someone. But that's why they try to monitor it and give a certain dose based on the body structure, the BMI, in terms of making sure they're not overdoing it or underdoing it. So that's where the measurement comes into play. But yeah, majority of the prescription pills have some kind of narcotic formulation to it. Yeah,
For
that's for
sure.
sure. Hmm.
Tell me about your job as a mental health therapist. As somebody who likes to do a lot of research on different things, I know that this is an epidemic. The mental health in our society, in our country, and even worldwide is extremely widespread. So, tell me what you deal with on a day to day basis.
In terms of what I do on a day-to-day basis, I work with the geriatric population dealing with severely mental ill clients, and they come from all ages, like 24 up to 60. And I deal with on a daily basis paranoia clients, schizophrenia, major depression, bipolar. So those are the terms that I deal with on a regular basis, and dealing with that population, the mood swings fluctuate, they up and down. So it's just very, you have to be very observant, and you have to make sure you build a rapport with the clients in order to get them to meet some kind of trust level. And trust level is the key to help these clients make it through a day-to-day basis. And just dealing with the mood swings is one of the most important thing, and understanding what's triggering them, and also just providing like intervention and prevention, like coping skills and strategies to try to help the clients remain at a equal balance.
I don't know if this is a fact, but this is a number that I heard, and I heard that 80% of people that have been abused in their childhood end up having some sort of mental illness. Now, I heard this on another podcast. I would have to do my fact checking on that, but is that number consistent to what you see with these individuals that you've been dealing with?
A majority of them come from either a genetic disposition, biological disposition, or environmental stressors, or emotional abuse, physical abuse, being traumatized. So yes, that number is pretty accurate. A lot of time you come in encounter with clients that have emotional and physical abuse that leads to ongoing psychiatric issues and concerns, or having a mental break. So yeah, it's definitely accurate.
Do you have any success stories on individuals that have come in, whether it be moderate or even severe, and you've seen them change their, um, change for the better?
Yeah, we have definitely a few. And like one particularly client, he have schizophrenia. So we figure out how can we keep him to stay from having outbreaks, because with the schizophrenia they have auditory hallucinations and then they have delusional belief, and then some of them come with anger outbursts. And anytime you have those severe clients, you have to kind of monitor them closely, because you never know when they're going to snap. And then with the auditorium, they can hear voices that we can't hear, or they can see things that we can't see. So those like within the mindset that cause mental stressors, and those stressors can lead to violent behavior, outbreaks. So, and I've been working with this client for like 4 months. In the first month, it was a little challenging because we was getting to know each other. Anything would ignite him because he had an anger issue along with having schizophrenia. So now lately here, he's been doing awesome. He's very helpful. He's involved with like trying to assist new clients that come into the program. He's punctual. He comes every day. And he's very receptive to the time that we spend together on individual sessions. And he's a people person. He's caring, and obviously we have to keep him on his medication. So now we do the injections. The injection kind of regulate his mood even faster than just giving it through oral, like administered through pills. So he's actually much better than what he was when he first started.
Wow. I got two questions. One, have you ever felt, unsafe? I mean, you look like a pretty built guy, but at the same time, have you felt unsafe during these times? I'll tell you a quick story. Well, when my first job out of college, I was a behavior specialist, and because I was going down this route, and I was. Working with autistic kids, and there was this kid. He was about 14 years old, and you know, with the applied behavioral stuff, you're not supposed to react when they have these behaviors. And so this kid, got angry, and he threw his entire lunch on me, and I was supposed to sit there, still and not react. But that's just not my personality, so
Yeah.
I had to, I didn't do anything over the top, but I let him know, like, look, this isn't going to happen.
Right.
So day I was like, this is probably not for me. So it takes somebody very, very endearing and somebody with a high level of patience, because my patience just isn't very high, and I just knew that probably wasn't for me. So, number one, have you ever felt in fear for your actual safety, and two, being that it's an outpatient type of facility, is that different back to get integrated in? Because I would see that, okay, environment, and then they get those other those other environmental things that may kind of keep them in that bad place.
I just want to say this, like I have experience working in like minimum security, like working in a prison setting as a substance
Mm,
abuse therapist with like older adults. So I think that's when I was able to master like my feelings of like feeling unsafe, just knowing that I can maneuver and work in that type of environment kind of allowed me to be able to maneuver further into like what I'm doing now as a profession. Yeah, it crossed your mind, but as much as we watch the clients, they watch us too.
mm.
In terms of our disposition, our demeanor, our body language. So if they sense or feel any hesitation or anxiousness or anxiety or any fearful sense, they pick up on that energy. So, I just feel like I'm a calm, collected individual. It takes a lot to, get me off my centerpiece. So
Sure.
that's the mindset that I carry into the environment. Am I watchful? Do I pay attention? Yeah, I do. I read the body language, I read the energy that they give off, and I read their face expression. So once I read those cues, that allow me to reposition myself and know which way to go or put my guards up in terms of being more vigilant. So to answer your question, I can be honest with you. No, I don't never feel unsafe because I'm always thinking ahead of time. I know the environment that I'm putting myself into. So I come into the atmosphere, already ready, not thinking anything bad is going to happen, but just in terms of just preparing myself mentally. So in the beginning, my first time in this field, yeah, of course, because I had to get to learn the clients, they had to get to learn me, and then just being able to read body language, verbals and non-verbals. I'm big on non-verbals, so
Right.
that's what keep me grounded, because I'm never taking a moment off, and never, I'm not content, So in terms of being content, meaning that I'm never unaware of what I'm doing or who I'm around on a daily basis. Yeah.
Right. And then the
So,
second part
and
of the
then with
question.
yeah, and then when they come from like the program runs from 8 to 2 o'clock. So from the time they leave our program and go home, we don't know actually what they get involved with. So obviously, it can be a non-conducive environment or it can be a conducive environment. But we do know that the clients go into environments based on what they share with us. Like it's a lot of stress, it's a lot of triggers. But the clients learn how to coexist with others to minimize those stressors. A majority of them that we work with, they are on medication. So, the medication is where keep them on a balance, to keep them intact, to keep
Right.
them to regulate their emotions on a consistent basis, but they are exposed to toxic environment. It can be roommates or it can be housemates or house managers. So you never know. Families and friends that may call and come over and visit. So
Interesting. Yeah, I feel so bad. I've had family members in those type of environments. It's really difficult on the staff. It's difficult on the families that love and care for these individuals, and the world needs more people like you helping out.
I
Um,
appreciate it. Yeah, I take pride in it.
Definitely, I can tell. Tell me about going out to Wyoming and the program in which you worked. You worked for, and just working with kids that were in really bad situations and trying to help them along their path.
Majority of the time, that I was there, the first few weeks was a challenge because obviously they knew to you, so it was about just trying to establish that relationship or that rapport. So it was challenging in that aspect, because a lot of them come from like broken home, dysfunctional home, abandonment. Some may come from like physical abuse from the mom or dad. You know, majority of the kids that I worked with, they was male. So, you know, but we had female and male. So obviously, if a student or a client see you as a threat or a reminder or a trigger of like a past experience, you know, that's an entanglement, that's a struggle, that's a challenge until they become comfortable and you become comfortable with them. So it's about building that trust and building that rapport. So it takes like 4 or 5 weeks to a month or more to build that relationship with the clients because you got to keep in mind they coming from behavior issues or they may have mental health issues. So it's about just meeting them where they are to kind of get a better understanding of how you're going to work with them, how you're going to deal with them, and how you're going to help them become better individuals. So in the first phase, it's challenging for sure.
I couldn't imagine, being a 15-year-old kid and being shipped off to this facility help me get better, but just trying to be receptive to that when you've probably had so many people in and out of your life that you really can't even trust. And you might have your own mental health issues, you might have some drug issues, or your family might have some of those things, and being thrown into this situation with so many unknowns, I can't even imagine what goes through these young people's minds when they're put in a situation like that. It just I mean I have two kids myself, and I would never want them to be in a situation like that, if we could ever help it.
hmm Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a trust issue in terms of that or who you can trust, the inconsistency. So we try to work on being more consistent because it's adjustment, it's a transition, you know, for the adolescents, and it's a transition and adjustment for the staff itself too. But prior to staff arriving to the job placement there, we don't know where these kids come from or the teens come from. So obviously, you know, coming to a new world, a new environment, you know, it's going to heighten their stressors, and also it's going to elevate their time there and challenges. You know, the majority of them, they are resistance in the beginning, you know, because of the letdown, because of the disappointments that they endure, or the physical and emotional abuse that they encounter. You know, so it takes at least a good month, 2 months to just kind of get some level of just building that trust, you know, and it don't happen overnight. So, but it's a transitional period and definitely adjustment period because staff come and go because the program ran for like 9 to 12 months, and some may be there depending on their behavior. Less than 9 months, you know, it just depends on how fast they complete the program. Then some can be there 12 months or more, just depending on the severity, because each adolescent and kids are different, you know, in terms of where they are mentally. Yeah.
And are most of these kids minorities?
Um, the one that I was at in Wyoming, actually, we had a majority of whites, you know,
Mhm.
white kids, and you'd be surprised. And it was a culture shock to me, you
Really?
know, as they always say that our kids are the worst one, you know, in terms of that. But you do have some Wyoming kind of taught me like it's a different ball game, it's a different world, you know, compared to our culture and other cultures that I was exposed to. And I probably had about like 5 or 6 minority kids there. Yeah.
And how did the kids take to you, specifically the white kids, not the minorities, since you're now a authority figure in their life, and maybe they haven't been around too many minorities?
And in terms of like, I think what helps me the most is just being more easygoing, you know, individual, and just being more concerned about their needs, and not really trying to say, "Hey, you're such a bad individual," or why you here. You know, I don't ask them those questions. You know, I
Right.
just kind of approach them and say, "Hey, I'm here to help." You know, my responsibility to make sure you're safe and sound, you know, while you're here, to make this program easy for you. And then once they feel that genuineness and that sincerity, you know, that's what they really look for in the beginning, like the genuineness, the sincerity, and showing concern, you know, and not coming there trying to be a bully or a hardcore staff. You know, if you try to come in that mindset, you're definitely gonna have a hard time. But just letting them know that there are boundaries, you know, in place, the do's and the don'ts. and just give them respect, and they give you respect. And that was my approach,
For sure.
and just kind of just trying to be there for them much as I can.
It goes to show you how important, raising a child is and putting them in an environment for success. So many of these individuals, I would assume, have not been put in a good position to be successful. And it has no, it doesn't discriminate, whether they be black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Indian, it doesn't really matter. If they're in a bad situation, they're in a bad situation. So it's unfortunate that that has to happen to individuals because they didn't choose to be here on this earth. Their parents had them, and
Right.
that's the reason why they're here. So putting them in a situation that is going to be unsuccessful for them is really putting them behind the eight ball as far as being um, or having a successful life. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't get out of it, but you're just put so far behind. It just makes it really difficult to do.
And that's true. That's true. And in terms of that, they don't have a choice based on, like you say, them coming up, the upbringing, and the parents that that birthed them and brought them to this world. But at the same time, like as they continue to grow and as they grow, some may look at it as saying like, I didn't have a fair shot, and some kids come to us like that. They have a fair shot, or it just came out of rough. I say divorce, like meaning like with the parents, and then they've been exposed to that mental and physical abuse for such a long time. They run away. We had some runaway kids too because they got tired of it. Some of them came to us 12, 13, ran away from home, or living on the streets just to get away from that toxic environment. So,
Wow.
and then you kind of relate to them, because the more you can be relatable, the more that they can feel comfortable and they open up. You'll be imagine, the things that they share with you and tell you, coming from their upbringing, or their environment. Yeah.
Well, hopefully for these people that are in these situations, people like yourself can help them see that there is a light at the end of the tunnel and they can dig themselves out of whatever situation they're in and hopefully change their mindset. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just praying for people that are less fortunate than me. I pray every day that, I'm able to put my kids in a good situation and my family in a good situation, and then help others that may not be able to have the same access to resources that I may have. So, again, really appreciate your work. Um, Switching up just a little bit, let's talk about the sports psychology side of it. What actually is what is sports psychology to people that might not know?
Okay, in terms of sports psychology, now you take in more the mental approach compared to the physical approach. You focus more on the mindset, like in terms of attitude, confidence, motivation. So my purpose as a sports psychology consultant is to increase the player's ultimate performance by increasing their ultimate mindset while they're facing psychological stressors. It can be issues from home, school, competition, competing for a position on the team, or trying to please the coach, or dealing with depression, anxiety, things like that. So as a sports psychology, you work on helping those individuals reach a balance, while they still trying to focus on competing as a student athlete, and bringing awareness to what's happening, what's causing them not to perform at a certain level that they desire to perform, and you got the sports performance anxiety, where you're just always feeling jittery, nervous. You can't actually focus in your concentration. So my purpose is to give those individuals strategies and technique, mental skills, like goal setting, increase their confidence. That's the focus of a sports psychologist.
And your difference between sports psychology and therapy.
Um, yeah, in terms of like the sports psychology, you basically giving the individuals the tools that they need to help them cope with their sports performance anxiety, like I say, attitude, motivation, and confidence. And as a therapist, you working on like it can be, and just trying to make sure I'm putting it in perspective. You giving them also tools and strategies and coping skills to develop a healthy mindset in terms of feeling good about themselves, on a daily basis, and letting them know that you're going to have some good days and bad days, but it's just about helping them be aware of the triggers and signs and symptoms that may interfere with their function on a daily basis. So
Right. And if I'm a high school athlete or even a college athlete, at what point would I need to come talk to an expert in the sports psychology field?
is more in terms of you being able to know what's causing you to not perform the way you want to perform. So it can be at any age, it can come from the age of 5 on up to professional level. It's just that at a high school level, what are the things that's stressing you out? I mean, obviously you got the three stressors, psychological stressors as in being an athlete, the lack of confidence, lack of motivation, the lack of skill set that you feel that you're not able to perform, comparing yourself to other teammates based on their skill set. So that can be an interference of how you perform as an athlete also. So I think it's the measurement. Either you progressing or you're regressing as an athlete. So that take measurement, and then if coaches seeing that you're not performing like they expect you to perform, and the player may feel like they're not performing the way they want to perform, it can be underlying issues that interfering with their performance.
Give me a
But the player
breakdown.
got to be able to.
Go ahead. Sorry.
mm,
Go ahead. Sorry.
But the player got to be able to identify things that's interfering with him also. So based on a clinical interview, what helps me is just giving those assessors assessments or questions to identify what's actually happening or what's going on with the player, because the more raw data that you have, the more suitable you can be as a clinician, as a sports therapist or a mental health therapist. We do like intakes to figure out what's really happening or what's going on.
So if I'm one of your clients, I come in. What is included in their original assessment to the rehabilitation of an athlete?
So in terms of like say you got sports anxiety scales. So the sports anxiety scale would give like random questions, in terms of how you feel about your performance, or what interferes with you performing, or um, what interfere with you in terms of where you trying to go with this whatever sport you want to play. It's just your confidence, or how can you relate to your coach. How can you relate to your teammate. So it's just different assessors that you come into play, like sports anxiety scale. Feeling nervous, apprehensive, lack of concentration, lack of focus. So those are the things that I would provide for the clients to answer, and that help me understand where they are with the motivation, the confidence, and then if they having any anxiety, where the anxiety coming from. So just helping players identify those factors that may interfere with their processing as an athlete.
Mm. And have you had any? Uh, have you had trouble, diagnosing what was actually happening for the athlete to not perform on there? Did it take some time? Was a certain client or two that okay, it took a while to kind of figure it out, and they finally opened up, and then now this is the breakthrough that you guys were looking for?
Yeah, in terms of that, because they can send mixed communications, or mis diagnosis. But for the most part, when you do get those kind of clients, it's like a complex issue. You may be having a panic attack as an athlete. You get nervous before the game, or you've kind of like putting in your mind already that I'm not going to perform well. So when it comes to that, your anxiety increase, and then you can have some where the anxiety is just leading up to the actual game day. And then you have some that dealing with outside factors, and they try to suppress them, keep them down. And then eventually, when they become comfortable and opening up, they start talking more.
Right. I think you just hit on it right there because so many times you might, uh, as a coach, when you watch the film, you may have thought it was one way during the game, and
Hmm.
then you watch the film and you're like, oh, that was totally different than what we actually expected. And so many times athletes are the same way. It's like, no, I was really playing defense there, coach. And you could tell them like, no, look, here's the film to show you actually what you actually were doing. And then it's almost like a slap in the face, like, whoa, I really wasn't playing no defense. And I think that is the same thing. And you kind of have to go deeper. And I think you just hit on it. Is it the more they're able to trust and you guys build that relationship, that rapport, then those
Hmm.
things can start to come out, and then you can really start to hone in on some things, to get through what actually is going on in their life to make them perform at a lower level than they're probably capable of.
Right, and that's the key. Like the sooner you can get them to be honest and upfront. Obviously, nobody want to admit to having deficits or weak points or weaknesses. As a competitor, as an individual. But once we learn how to feel comfortable and be comfortable about opening up and being honest with yourself, now we can work on building those skills that you need to be a wholesome individual. As not just an athlete, but a wholesome person. As a student athlete or a professional athlete, professional coach, and as a client, the way to get to the bottom line is like being honest and admitting that you have these concerns and deficit, and that's where I find the beginning of me getting a turning point when they open up and they start sharing about what's really going on. But just try to help support that. That's why it's important to do like these assessors, um, clinical interviews and things like that, hoping that they would be honest from the jump start. But if they stick with you, eventually they're gonna open up. So it's like meeting the clients where they are. So meeting them where they are, and then you just can build from there. And then you just coach them along the way, and then that's when you give out these questionnaires. It's different questionnaires that you can give out because sometimes athletes have more underlying issue than what they can communicate and verbalize to you. So that's why it's important to do the assessments to kind of help support, what we may see or what they may tell us, but just giving us that evidence or the more substantial information to help match what we see and what the coach may see or what the parents may see or what the player may feel going on up underneath.
How much of this is on the coaches? We're filming this in middle of December. But a few weeks ago, I don't know if you saw it on the news and ESPN. There was a football coach that struck an 8-year-old athlete multiple times and is getting prosecuted for. Uh, Now that is the physical abuse, but so many coaches playing, these coaches would say anything to you, and I think over the years people have come to find out like that's not how you treat people, and you can actually treat the kids or the athletes in a better way and still get the same amount out of them. But how much of this of your work is directly derived from how the coaches are treating the athletes? Because I can even in my early ages, I had coaches, so I would mimic what other coaches were doing, and I had to have one of my best friends at the time tell me, hey, that's not you. I was basically playing at what I seen my whole life. And so, I had to change. I had to be who I was eventually. But when you're a young coach, in your early 20s, I was just doing what I saw other coaches doing, and that was, demeaning the players. Not
Hmm.
all the time, but in certain situations where they wouldn't do what we were asking them to do, um, we would. So, tell me about that.
Yeah, I think in terms of just coaching and being a former athlete, like coaches, once they get to a level of coaching, it's based on mimicking coaches that coach them, so they try to carry out that same concept, coaching concept. And then I think fast forward to now, this generation, now like in the coaching arena, Like I think coaches lack the understanding of mental health and how it impacts the mindset of not just coaches but players also. Then coaches may think a player is capable of performing to a certain level because that's what the coach have in his mind. This is where he should be and this is what I expect of him. So therefore, I feel like it's a lack of understanding coming from a coach's perspective to understanding the age group that he's coaching. And then with the development, the stages of development, some player may learn quicker than other players, and the coach's expectations should be based on his expectation. His expectation should be based on that skill set of that kid, of that younger player to help that player along the way. Because now with coaches nowadays, it's more valuable for them to understand the psychological development of these players from wherever they may be, But I just feel like now coaches don't understand the social development that these kids are involved with sports, because sports teach you social skills, how to get along with others. So I think the coach may be in his mind thinking the player should be where he want him to be, projecting where he should be. So it's more of a lack of understanding or a lack of awareness of the mindset of individuals. And I feel like coaches should go to a certain platform to learn to understand the development, the stages that continue to develop with kids.
For sure. Uh, Wrapping it up here, you've got a dinner party of 5 individuals, and you would be the sixth. Who would you invite to your dinner party, and why?
Hmm, that's a tough one. Um, I would say like
And I'll before
my
you go, before
coworkers.
you go, you can go. Anybody in in the entirety of the world, whether they be here on this earth or up in the sky.
Mm-hmm. I would say like my siblings, my brothers, because I'm very family oriented.
Mhm.
So I have 6 brothers
Oh well,
that's
that's the whole
still
that's the
living.
whole party.
Yeah, yeah. I just it's just something about brothers, and the brotherhood and being the last one, and then just watching them grow, and just like to spend more time much as possible, and just catch up on their childhood memories as much as what I learned from them growing up too. Yeah.
That's good. Where can everybody follow you? We met on LinkedIn, and it was really good just connecting with you. But people that want to get more information, where can they follow you?
I have my Instagram at Bobby Hallback. They can follow me there, and then obviously on LinkedIn, I'm there. From time to time, I'm posting quotes. I'm posting interventions or things in regards to what I do. So LinkedIn and Instagram would be a way to kind of follow me. And then I'm also on Facebook too, but I'm not much active on Facebook, but definitely Instagram.
Right. Well, really great having you on. I know a lot of people are going to get some value out of this conversation. Mental health is so important, and you kind of highlighted a bunch of really critical things for people to really understand and be empathetic to. So many times we just think people should be able to be strong and power through it, and all of those things, whether that be just in your regular, normal, everyday life, or even in this on the court or field or things like that. So, anything else you want to add as far as that is concerned?
In terms of that, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to open up. But the thing is, just like being honest with yourself. The more that you can understand to be honest with yourself and be more in tune to what's going on internally, it's going to help you become a better individual. But at the same time, don't be afraid to reach out and get help because we can't do it by ourselves. So we all need someone to reach out and talk to and just help find that balance. So each one teach one, in
Definitely.
terms of that. Yeah.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you for listening to the Beyond the Buckets podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and share the show with your friends. And until next time, take care.